You're going to pay more because you weigh more. The airplanes are designed to take a lightning strike. The government allows them to do that. There is one airline that I know of that doesn't. Here we go. Let's jump into number one. At Truth is South Air 6721. That's an interesting name. Dear Captain Steeeve, can you please explain the logic in why the price of airline tickets is not based on weight? It seems logical that the cost of flying is based on fuel consumption, which would be dependent on passenger weight. Well, it is and it isn't, in a sense, based on weight. Airplanes are very sensitive to weight, and again, the costs go up the heavier the aircraft it is, the operating costs. It would be the height of insensitivity to say to somebody, you're going to pay more because you weigh more. All right. They have a factor that they use for the average weight of an average person. So, and that average weight goes up in the summer or goes up in the winter and goes down in the summer. Isn't that interesting? All right. So you're more active in the summer. You carry less clothing with you. So the weight comes down for a male and a female. Some people will weigh a lot less. Some people will weigh a lot more. But on average, it works out. So again, this is not workable from a marketing standpoint. How in the world would you say to somebody, you're going to have to pay more, you're going to have to pay less? You know, it would be a disaster. So the airlines couldn't get into that. But I hear you. It is kind of based on weight, and they do have formulas for it. They just don't tell you that out loud. Okay. Next question is at Usher Leifer. First of all, thanks, Captain Steeeve, for this series. And here is my question. Was there ever a story in aviation history that you have or haven't discussed on your YouTube channel that gave you a lesson or changed your perspective on how to approach certain scenarios? That's a very insightful question. The answer to that is yes. We're working on a series called Now You Know, and that's going to come out soon. And Now You Know is designed to be a deep dive into historical incidents and accidents, things that have happened in the decades before. And I think the biggest aviation disaster of all time was the Tenerife accident. 500 plus people were killed in that accident. Two 747s collide on the runway at Tenerife, and it's still to this date the worst aviation disaster in history. When I was reading about that and learning about that as a young pilot, I really did a deep dive into what happened there, and it was really a matter of hubris. And hubris and my way or the highway, or I'm the captain and you got to listen to what I say no matter what, has no place in the cockpit. There needs to be an open dialogue. There needs to be a tone set in the cockpit that your co-pilots, and I was an FO longer than I was a captain, feel free to speak up. If they don't, that's a dangerous situation, and you don't want to set that tone in the cockpit. That tone was set by the 747 captain that took a takeoff roll and wasn't cleared to take off, and 500 lives later, he also is dead. So again, I learned a lot from that, and I think I've always wanted to be a good, balanced captain that set the right tone of authority, but at the same time was approachable, that you could speak to. I think that's the safest way to go. All right, very good question. At Alex M, question for Captain Steeeve. Hey, you're in the right place. You mentioned something about licenses a few Ask the Captains ago. I did. My question about license is, if you were to do something while off duty, for example, a DUI, speeding, etc., does that affect your pilot's license? Asking as I'm a CDL holder. That's commercial driver's license, for those of you who don't know. And I know anything we do on personal time affects our CDL, rather it be a car or a truck. Just curious. Yes, the answer to that is yes. And you're in the public safety business, so that extends out to your personal life as well. I can't go out and take drugs. If I do take drugs that are prescribed by a physician, I have to declare those. I have to let somebody know. And then I have to look into it and find out, am I off the schedule for a while? If I'm, taking a certain pain reliever or whatever, I might not be able to fly for a week or 10 days. A DUI would affect it. I think you'd be taken off the schedule for a DUI. You might end up with some counseling and so forth. So yeah, there's a number of things that in your private life could affect your license, which I mean, they're not going to physically take your license from you, but you would be taken off the schedule, and then you would have to earn your license back at some point, and there'd be a regiment that you'd have to go through. They're not trying to get rid of you, but if, again, they're also trying to rehabilitate you. If you've got some issues, maybe you do need some time off the schedule. And all of that would factor in. But yeah, that's a very good question. All right, at T. Jorgensen 2007, do you have a personal landing ritual? Some pilots have quirky habits like putting on a specific lucky baseball cap right before descent. And what's one feature of your cockpit that passengers would find surprisingly old school? I do. In fact, I think everybody does. I didn't really realize I did until a number of years, but I always have a baseball cap with me. As you know, on this channel, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. Sorry to my Yankees fans, but I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, and I always have my Boston Red Sox cap on. And so when I'm in the airplane, I have it on for takeoff. Some of it is practical. The bill in front helps when there's like the sun's beating in on you through the window, and you can use that bill so it doesn't sear a hole in your eyeballs and you can see your instrument. So it's very practical. The other part is, over the years, as I was losing my hair, the headset that I wear just rubs on the top of your head. And as there's less and less hair to cushion it, that ball cap was a very welcome addition to keep my hair on my head. All right. But I found myself over the years, as I was coming into the airport, like, top of descent down, looking for my baseball cap, put my cap on, put it on just the right way, put my headset on, make sure everything, position my seat the right way. And then I would into my hands like that and get a little, just a little grip. And so I'd have a good grip on everything. And that was part of my ritual, all of those little things that I just described. What's the most old school thing in the cockpit? I think it's the sun visors. So we were talking about the sun burning a hole in your head through your eyes, right? The sun visors that they have in a multi-million-dollar aircraft, commercial aircraft, are just clip-on things that you clip onto a rail. They're hideous. They're awful. They're always getting in the way. They don't work very well. And I'm just shocked that they couldn't come up with a better system. The sun beating in is a big deal, but they have these old world just clip-on sun visors. That's it. You'd be kind of shocked by that. All right, now you know. At Gavin Braden 5985, Captain Steeve, what is the strangest reason for which you have ever had to go around? For us, it was a turtle on the runway at Orlando, loving the content. Yeah, there have been a lot of animal incidents over the years, and a turtle, that's probably one of the stranger ones I've heard. I've gone around for deer on the runway. I've gone around for a fox on the runway. It looks like your dog, and you're on the flare and you see this animal out and you're like, you hit the power and go on. Both of those were in the Navy days. My third, and I did 3 go-arounds 4 approaches, 3 go-arounds in a snow squall up in Andoya, Norway. And it was the worst snow I've ever been in. We didn't see anything. We got down to the bottom, down to minimums, went around, 3rd time. The 4th time, the weather broke just enough for us to get a little glimpse of the runway. But boy, yeah, I don't want to repeat that again. Yeah, interesting question. All right. All right. At Ryan 8495. Hi, Captain Steeve. I was on a flight into Denver a few months back, and as we were descending to land, our plane was struck by lightning. It was a super quick flash, and everyone looked at each other in confusion. You would. And it was clear we were struck, but nothing happened. What is the process for the pilots when this happens? And what happens to the plane afterwards? Is it inspected? Is there a process that needs to take place afterwards? Thanks. Yes, very rare, a lightning strike of an airplane, but the airplanes are designed to take a lightning strike so that you don't get shocked on the airplane and that everything keeps working on the airplane. At the end of every wing and off the empennage of the airplane, the aft stabilizers and rudder and so forth are little long things. They look like a pen to your naked eye from a distance. And they're called static wicks. And they're designed to disperse any sort of static buildup, which would include a lightning strike. So most lightning strikes are going to cause a scorch mark or something wherever they hit, but it's not going to bring the airplane down. It's going to disperse throughout the airplane, go out over these static wicks, probably burn them up, but they're serving their purpose. But you do have to get inspected after you get down on the ground. So you got to declare it. Probably want to declare an emergency, probably a pan emergency. get down on the ground, everybody gets deplaned, then they're going to bring specialists out. They're going to inspect the airplane, make sure that all the electronics, there's a whole lengthy checklist that the maintainers on the ground go through after a lightning strike. And if it's bad enough, they'll take that airplane out of service, do the repairs, put it back into service later. That's what takes place after you land. All right, excellent. Sam at Sam M8U9L. I have been flying a lot lately, and pretty much every flight I have boarded, they always overbook the flight. Boy, isn't that the truth? Okay, how does the airline sell more tickets than they do seats on an airplane? Thanks, and I love your videos. The government allows them to do that. There is one airline that I know of that doesn't, and that's JetBlue. JetBlue will not oversell their flights. The reason that the government allows all the other carriers to oversell, and I don't know what the ratio is, I think it's like, it depends on the route and the flight and the time of year, but I can say it's like maybe up to 10%. That's probably not that high, is because of no-shows. They know historically on all these routes that a certain amount of people typically are not going to show for that flight. So they're actually doing you a favor. You're getting on a flight because they know a number of people aren't going to go. If they hadn't sold you the ticket, you wouldn't be able to get on that flight at all. So sometimes it works out. Most of the time, it actually works out in your favor, and you don't have the slightest clue that 8 people didn't show up for the flight, and that's why you got on. It works against you when all 8 of those people show up, and you are one of the last people to have bought a ticket, and you don't get on that flight. So it's, yeah, but it seems like it runs in cycles, doesn't it? You're the person that gets bumped. But they're allowed to do it by the government. All right, at Adam Jarvis. Are kids allowed to still sit or check out the cockpit pre-flight? I'm 40 now, but I remember when I was a young lad, I got to meet the captain and check out the cockpit before the flight. Very cool and memorable experience. Yes, absolutely. And I always encourage kids to come up with their families. I had one of my last flights. This lady was probably about 45 years old. And she was there with her daughter, and she was sitting on, she got to wear the captain's hat, and we were taking pictures. And she goes, yeah, when I was a kid, I never got to do this. I'm like, well, come on, sit down. She's like, oh, no, I'm too old. I mean, no. I said, you're never too old to do this. I said, if you don't do this right now, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. Got a big old grin on her face, sat down in the captain's seat. You put my hat on, she was mugging for the camera. I had her daughter on her lap. Those are great memories, folks. Take advantage of it. We're in such a rush anymore, trying to get from here to there. We don't ever stop and smell the flowers. And sometimes stop and smell the flowers are, hey, can I go up to the cockpit and talk to the pilots? Hey, after the flight is over, can I go up and any chance I can get a tour of the cockpit? Most pilots will be more than happy to show you around. And if you want to take a picture, absolutely take the picture. You should do it. All right. So don't hesitate. Do it. I love doing it as a captain, and every co-pilot I flew with loved showing kids and taking pictures. It's really great. All right. At Shu Yan 1832, sorry. Why aren't there traffic lights for airport runways? All these crucial traffic just handled by human mouths and ears sounds super reliable, doesn't it? Well, that's kind of sarcastic, but there are actually traffic lights. It's not the traditional ones that you see like red, yellow, green, but there are green lights for taxiways. There are red lights that are threshold lights at the threshold of a runway that turn red or disappear to let me know that I can proceed. It's also accompanied by that human that's watching. So if the tower controller says, Captain Steve, 123 flight, you're cleared for takeoff on runway 23 left. And there's a bar of red lights in front of me, I'm not moving. I'm going to call him back and I'm going to say, hey, you cleared me for takeoff, but I still got red lights. Oh, sorry, forgot to flip the switch. All right, so you got to obey the lights, but they've put those in the last, probably 10 years, just as another backup to catch another threat to make sure that you don't have a runway incursion, because there's been a lot of runway incursions, so it's just another layer of trapping threats. But there are actually lights at the airports. Okay. Next question is at AR11384. My question for you, Captain Steve, is, do you think using AI in the near future would get rid of all of these biases and need for multiple human controllers? I would still want a person behind, but I feel a lot of the work could be functioning smoothly and consistently each time through AI. AI is going to improve things. AI should not replace. real people. You need that human wisdom and discernment and judgment. And AI will never be wise like a human being or experienced like a human being. Information and wisdom and experience and judgment are two totally different things. So again, reaction times, AI is great at that. It's quick. It's a lot of information, but that gut feeling that a controller will get or that a pilot will get, you can't train that into AI. I think AI is going to come along and assist, help make the job go better and easier and faster, but it's never going to replace it, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't replace pilots, that's for sure. Last question. At David Clay V9I, best question ever. He's already said his question is the best question ever. Here we go. I hope it is. What happens when the last passenger gets off a regional flight? For instance, 6 a.m. At CVG to LaGuardia. All right. Do they clean and service the aircraft? Flight crew stay on aircraft? ? Does the crew stay with that aircraft all day? Well, if you were giving yourself a grade for the best question ever, you'd have to say the best questions because there's about 4 questions here. We'll see if they're the best questions or not. All right, number 1, do they clean and service the aircraft? Yes, on overnights, they clean and service the aircraft, get it ready for the next day. All right, next is flight crew stay on the aircraft. Sometimes, if it's a turnaround flight, I've had a lot of flights that in a day I would go to Dallas and back to New York, and you stayed with the airplane. Sometimes you have to switch airplanes when you go to Dallas, but we'd go back and forth, so it depends on the flight. Does the crew stay with that aircraft all day? Very rarely, very rarely. Sometimes you'll have a 2 or 3 legger and by luck, and I mean by luck, you stay with the aircraft. Usually when you get to the airport, they've got that airplane assigned to go someplace else. You got to pick up your bags. You got to go pick up the paperwork someplace else and get to another gate. But generally speaking, on a turnaround, 90% of the time you stay with your own airplane. Crews love it when they stay on the aircraft. We don't have to pack up all of our stuff, schlep to the next gate. You know what? You get a little bit of downtime, and it's nice. But generally speaking, you pick up and you go to another airplane. All right. These are some really, really good questions. Thanks for sending them in. We're going to go back into the comments to look for the next batch of really great questions for the next episode of Ask the Captain. So we had an outstanding question here about whether AI is going to replace the pilots or the air traffic controllers someday. If you're looking for a video or 2 that talks about that subject, check out one of these.